My name is Sakina Deer. I work as a school administrator here in Mississippi. Part of my job requires me to support scholars with special needs. Also, with part of my job as scholar support specialist within our district is I support scholars that may need service that may not be within a general education teacher's scope of practice. Today, I want to support scholars as well as newly up and coming school administrators that may just be starting out to support your scholars with EL needs. I'm going to show you some of the resources that supported me starting out supporting my scholars. One of the biggest resources that has been handed to me that really supports me throughout the year is the Mississippi Department of Education's website. We know that MDE provides numerous trainings throughout the year for teachers, for families and administrators, as well as the community to support all of our children within the districts here in Mississippi. One of the biggest resources that I use to support my scholars, they have EL or English language needs, are found here on the English Learner Supports tab of the Mississippi Department of Education's website. As you can see, there are numerous tabs of supports and tools that we can use as school administrators to support not only our families, but our scholars and our teachers. The first thing I needed starting out was like a map. Where do I start first? One of the biggest things that supported me were the state's webinars. If you can't make it to all of their trainings in person, it's great to have resources that you can use right at your fingertips. So using these EL webinars and literacy tips, these are great starting points before you start diving into some of the paperwork. The first thing that I looked at when I started out was how to write a language service plan. This website, the MDE's website, provides us with those webinars. And this particular webinar is a YouTube video that takes us through from start to finish of how to develop a language service plan. This is a great tool when you have no idea, to be quite transparent, as to what a language service plan all entails and who should be a part of the team who develops this plan. This webinar is a great tool. And just as a disclaimer, some of the resources found on MDE's page, they may be dated for years prior, but all of these resources are still valid. I use them daily, weekly, and I've used them from the beginning of the year up until now. So this webinar is a great resource for a newly up and coming school administrator that wants to know how to write a language service plan to support your team. You can also provide these links to the people who will be providing such supports. Again, webinars are great, but you also have to have the tools to actually write those service plans. So once you have these webinars and you've watched a few, and you've kind of got an idea of some of the things you might need, the next thing I needed was support for my families. So the family guides, as you see here, they come in English and they also have Spanish version. Whenever you want to do welcome letters, or if your parents ask for support, this is a great resource for them, and you'll see why in a second. Typically, when I do my welcome letters, I try to attach the resource, the family guide in English as well as in Spanish, and I choose whatever grade level matches the scholar that I'm providing support. For example, if I have a scholar that's second grade, I'd attach this link into my welcome letter. And the reason this resource is so helpful starting out is it gives the parent a number of different resources that they can use for themselves, as well as resources that they can use to have an understanding of the expectations of the scholar once they walk into that second grade classroom. So it tells them in reading in second grade some of the things or some of the expectations of the scholar and some ways to support them at home. And as they go through, there's a number of different resources that the parents can use when they're supporting the scholar in their home. The Family Guide is a great tool for the family, and not only the family, but it also supports the school with that school to home and home to school pipeline. Another good resource for myself starting out is the newcomer introduction kit or the newcomer kit. This introduction tells me all of the supplies or all the tools that I can use to provide to the teachers that can support them within the classroom, tools that I can print and have ready on hand for students to use the first day of school. Within this introduction kit, it tells you a little bit about these resources, and it explains that if you have a scholar that comes to your school with little to no English, some of these resources will be very necessary to communicate to that scholar and for that scholar to communicate to the teacher and vice versa. Students may be well aware of what a pencil is or what the playground is. They may be well aware of what those objects are, but they may not have the vocabulary to express the need for such items or things. So having cue cards are amazing, and they really help with communication for that scholar, as well as when they're trying to communicate with the teacher and the teacher communicate vice versa. Visual schedules are also supportive. Again, having pictures that support the language barriers, it'll really bridge that gap for that scholar to have a sequence of their day and be able to move about their day in order and have some type of structure to their day. So all of these are very helpful for the scholar as well as the teacher to have within their classroom. More resources up top for the teachers. These are very helpful when you're trying to make sure that scholars still getting high quality instruction within the classroom. And as you can see, it gives you support for hybrid or remote learning environments. Some of these are new, and it'll be great for scholars who may be virtual or vice versa, where they may be in any of these type of environments. Is very helpful. It also gives you a progress checklist. This is helpful for the teacher as they mark progress to help support in the goal writing for the next year. So I'll click on this so you can have an idea of what this progress sheet looks like. Within this progress sheet, the teacher gets an opportunity to provide details that will support in writing those goals. It gives you examples at the top. It gives the teachers examples at the top of how to use these. And then, as you can see, under the checklist, it makes it very simple. So you're not having to write a lot of stuff when you're trying to quickly go through the progress that this student is making. So at the top, you'll see the demographic, students information, teachers information, and the subject. And as you can see, as you go across, it tells if they're above proficient and or going below proficient. So if you're looking at the student can recount, are they above proficient in this area? Are they bridging in this area of recounting all the way down to the beginning stages of recounting, as you can see. And as a teacher, I go through and see where that scholar is in these areas, and I mark so I have an idea of this year's where this student is. And then next year, by the end of the year, I can use this same template and mark and see if that scholar made any progress. And as you can see, this is speaking for kindergarten. And as you go through, you can see the different areas that you may want to look at depending on where that scholar is receiving support. So this is very helpful for goal writing. It's also helpful to show the parent whether or not that scholar has been making progress in the EL program. Those are all great resources for the families as well as the teachers to use. And as you can go on, you'll see plenty of different resources for the school to use. The next resource that you need to have on hand is a language service plan. So when you go through all the steps of identifying the scholar, reaching out to the families, providing them supports, you also want to get that team together to write a language service plan to document the services that you'll be providing to this scholar. So the top of the language service plan starts with the demographics information. Most of this information you can find within their CUME records, or you can get with someone in your data department, secretary, school secretary, to provide this information at the top. The next portion talks about the academic achievement level or the history. If you have a kindergarten scholar, you may not have any of this data. So this may remain blank for some time, but once they get to the point where they're doing academic assessments, your academic screeners, that's where that information will go here in this portion. If you're using NWEA MAP or whatever resource you're using, you put where they fall academically and keep up with that history. The next portion is the English language proficiency test, and we call it the ELPT. So on this portion, every year at the end of the year, our EL scholars, our scholars that we label EL, they have to take this assessment. You put the dates here once you get the scores. The score will go here and whatever level they achieve in. So again, this is done every year. So each year, will be a cumulative record that you keep every year as that scholar takes that ELPT assessment. The next portion on Appendix B is the actual EL service. Whoever is providing that service will fill this portion out. You can, again, this is something you can fill out at the meeting while you're discussing the services that you want to provide to support this student. Depending on the area in which they struggle, or the area where they did not achieve proficiency on that screener, that Lost Link screener, those are the areas you want to look at writing goals in and providing support. So if you're going to use an online support service, you write those services in here. If you're using an individual who will be providing hands-on services, the services will go here. And as you can see, specific measurable goals. And if you have someone who has never written a language service goal, again, the state has tools for that. We have state standards, so you can go here to the proficiency standards, English language proficiency standards. And if you have a scholar with a significant cognitive disability that is also EL, your standards here. But you can go to those standards, and depending on the grade level that the scholar is in, we'll go back to second grade since we talked about that earlier, and the area that you're looking in, you can figure out where they fall based on that Lost Links screener. And then you can use this if they fall in level 2 or 3 or whatever level they fall in. It'll give you some standards that you can look at to base your goal on. You can even write these right into your goal. Student will identify some keywords and phrases, and then within this document, the language service plan, under whatever area that falls in, you're going to write that they will be able to identify some keywords and phrases and how they'll be able to do it. What resource are you going to use for them to be able to do that? And how long should it take them to gain that skill? So you're going to write an measurable goal for each domain that this scholar falls below proficiency in. Again, use the resources that the state provides. You can always write your own goals here, but it's very helpful if we use those standards that's provided to us. The next portion is the state standardized testing accommodations portion. In this portion, you'll write any accommodations that are allowable based on this Mississippi Testing Accommodation Manual. And as you can see, it's linked here. Click right on it. You can see what accommodations are allowable that will support this scholar throughout the year, as well as on this state test. So you'll write that accommodation here, the testing code will go here, and whatever test that they're taking, if it's MAP ELA, MAP Math, MAP Science, whatever test they're taking, you write that code and you write the accommodation here. And one thing that's been stressed within our state is any standardized testing accommodation is a classroom accommodation. So make sure that whoever is providing services know that any of these state testing accommodations, they're also provided throughout the year within the classroom. The next portion of Appendix B is the classroom or the classroom instructional supports, accommodations, and modifications. Here's a list that you can quickly check off whatever accommodation or support that will support this scholar throughout the year. As you can see, it's not an all-inclusive list. You can always add any other accommodations or modifications that you feel would support this scholar with the collaboration of your team. Once the plan is created, everyone will sign and date here. The next portion of Appendix B is the exit or monitor status documentation forms. So again, this is your demographics up here at the top. The only way you would fill this exit or monitor status documentation out is if your scholar meets that proficiency score on the ELPT or the English language proficiency test. Once they meet that proficiency score, then you would you will start documenting their monitor status up into their exit status. This portion is filled out by the person who is responsible for exiting and monitoring the individual student. The exit information goes here. Monitoring information goes here. Monitoring continue. If you have a scholar that has not made it to this exit monitor status, then these pages will remain blank. These are a lot of tools that the state offers to us as administrators to support our scholars, to support our teachers, and to support our families, as well as us, to be able to support the entire team. Utilize the tools that the state provides to us, and there are a number of different resources out there that will support your EL students. Again, my name is Sakina Deer. If I can support anybody at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out.